Yo, what's up, y'all? Today on Prison to Promise, we're joined by Monica Wright, a peer support specialist based in Buncombe County, North Carolina. Monica brings a powerful blend of lived experience, compassion, and on the ground wisdom to her work. As someone who understands recovery not as a destination but as a daily practice, she walks alongside people navigating trauma, substance use, reentry, and the often invisible emotional weight that follows incarceration and systems involvement. In this conversation, we talk honestly about what peer support really looks like, why trust and presence matter more than perfection, and how healing happens in relationship, not isolation. This is a conversation about resilience, accountability, and the quiet strength it takes to show up for others while continuing to do your own work. Yo, I'm grateful to share space with Monica, and I'm honored to bring her voice to you today, here on the Prison to Promise podcast. Now let's go. Not for nothing, you look great, sis.
Well, thank
Yeah, but thank you for joining me on this platform. I really appreciate you taking the risk with me,
you.
you know. And so, I want to respect your time and try to keep this like within 30 or 40 minutes. And
Okay.
so maybe for listeners who never met you, maybe meeting you for the first time, how would you like to introduce yourself beyond your incarceration story?
My name is Monica Wright. I am 42 years old. I'm formerly incarcerated, as you know, but I'm also an amazing mother and wife and peer support specialist and all the things. And I just have a new life now, and I just go out there representing what we can be.
Yeah, right on. And that's dope. And that's just what I want to highlight. Not so much the fact that you've been incarcerated, because like me and most people who come on this platform with me, everybody knows we've been incarcerated. But what I really want to highlight is the fact that you're an amazing mother, you're an amazing citizen, you're an amazing, partner, and all these other amazing things that have come to fruition in your life with hopes of inspiring other women, other men, other people who have very similar backgrounds as you and I, impacted by this criminal legal monster of a system. So again, thank you. Thank you. But jumping right into it, maybe just are you willing to talk maybe a little bit about maybe what was happening in your life before you were incarcerated that many people don't often see or understand when they think about women who've been incarcerated?
Sure. I had an experience. So childhood's a little tricky. There's still things that I don't completely open up about. As I have a strong voice of saying that I have to say my past doesn't define me, right? And
Right.
I don't support excuses. And
Hmm.
that's for my own journey and not when there's mental health issues or trials and heartache and devastation that goes on in one's life that cannot lead to poor decision making. So I want to make it perfectly clear, just in my story, not acceptable for me
Hmm.
to use some of those things as a reason. However, I am fully aware that bad situations in childhood can lead to poor decision making in our adulthood. And I
Hmm.
would say I fall into that, but it's like I empower myself by not allowing that to kind of be my reason for going down the path that I went. But it was troublesome.
Hmm.
Uh, there were things that went on. I will say, being insecure, not feeling like I was loved or appreciated or protected.
Mm.
I do feel like led into some of my decision making and in the crowds that I ended up joining.
Yeah.
I always had the older boyfriend, so you could say, I went down the road of daddy issues. I'll
Yeah.
leave it at that.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, so, but as like I said, as I grow, I learned that is my jump to work through because we have no control of what anybody else does.
Right on.
So kind of just led down a path of having fun and maybe hanging out in places with people I might not have should have.
Yeah.
But I was able to, keep, substances under control and just party, if you will,
Mhm.
until I was about 25 years old. When I was 25 years old, that is when the trouble hit. And I learned that meth is not a drug that you can use recreationally,
Yeah.
right? That was the one that got me. That was the one that had power over me. And that led to many, many years, over a decade
Wow.
of many mistakes, that I find purpose in now.
Well, looking at you, you look like you've recovered well. Don't look like meth ever touched you, you know? But, you said something that really stands out to me, and I think many of us who've been incarcerated have had number of adverse childhood experiences. That ACE score, and many of us have really high adverse childhood experience scores. I know mine is high. I had a lot of adverse childhood experiences, and a lot of people I talk to as well on this platform and in the work that I do. Another thing that you said that really stood out is, you know, there are no excuses. I think there's reasons, but sometimes, the reasons people use become excuses, but and then lastly, you said something else, about bad decisions. And I'm a hip hop head. And so I love DMX. And DMX once said, bad decisions lead to last decisions. And now your ass is missing. And many of us make these bad decisions and we end up missing for 10 years, 20 years, for life or whatever inside the penitentiary or deep in our addictions. Thanks for sharing that. And so, who or what you think perhaps had the biggest influence on your life back then?
Prior to,
Just like prior to incarceration, prior to getting locked up?
um, finding love in all the wrong places, wherever I could find that.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yes. Searching.
it was searching just when you don't feel worthy
Yeah.
and you don't feel protected
Yeah.
and in a way dismissed.
Yeah.
Um, I just kind of went after whatever made me feel good, whether that be men
Yeah.
or street credit
Yeah.
or the drugs,
Yeah. 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 That resonates with me so much. Again, I don't think many of our stories are that different, especially those of us who've been in prison.
Isn't
You
that
know,
wild?
yeah, it's wild,
There's a common denominator.
so many, because everything you're saying right now is part of my story, and part of the other stories I've heard along the way, you know. And so when you found yourself inside prison, what do you think was maybe the most difficult part about incarceration? And not so much that that's just the most difficult part about it, but the part that isn't talked about enough, especially for women, because we often think about incarceration and just men.
I think the isolation that if you don't have support from the outside, you are completely cut off. I mean,
Yeah.
when you're indigent, there were several times, I would have money on my books, but I mean, I'm one of those that there were most times I didn't. And so, I became a good letter writer and I would, find myself writing more letters, but
Mhm,
sometimes I just need to hear a comforting voice, you
mhm,
know what I mean? I do feel like you can express your words in a letter, but I think when someone can hear kind of the pain in your tone or the laughter that you have or the excitement that you can express whenever you're wanting to do
yeah,
differently, I think the connection, just the lack of connection altogether, whether it be on the inside or those on the outside, I think they kind of go hand in hand.
mhm,
So I would just say of the lack of hope and
yeah,
connection.
wow, yeah. Every time you say something, it's just so heavy, sis. Because again, I'm thinking about that too, that lack of connection, and what I know about women's prisons, um, they're more desolate than men's prisons. Women don't get many visits, don't phone calls, packages, all that, and it seemed like I know when I was incarcerated, they called the visiting room the dance floor for the men. You're going on the dance floor, so that gives it, like, this really jazzy type of perception, whereas I perceive like the women's prisons visiting room like a desert almost.
I can't comment. I never made it to a visitation room.
Wow.
So I know I had more visits in jail
Hmm.
through my extra jail stints after prison,
Yeah.
than I did while I was in prison. And part of that, probably because I'm from up near Asheville, Western
Hmm.
North Carolina,
Hmm.
I was sent to Raleigh and then Rocky Mount. So it was like there was not a goal. I didn't make it back up here to Swannanoa until 4 days prior to my release.
Okay, so you were far away from home,
So
so
I
how
was far
far?
away from home. Yeah.
And that's what most prisons are. They're far away from the places where people commit or get arrested. And I think that is difficult for those of us who are inside because it continues to chip away at our hope, because we can't connect with our people. And we know and understand that we need connection, valued connection to feel good about ourselves and to find self-worth, these things that you talked about earlier. But
That's why I believe so passionately about expanding and getting peer support on the inside.
mhm,
COs aren't trained, they have a total, and I get it. And I'm all about not making excuses, right? They have a job to do,
mhm,
but they aren't necessarily trained on how to speak to people, how to care about people.
right.
And I believe that there are some good, but they have to put up a shield once they enter those doors because it can be very dangerous.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
again, when you're a realist and you're looking at it from both sides,
Mhm.
you have to see that everybody has a purpose and everybody has a place. I'm just really advocating for making a space for someone to be in there that is their job, to
Yeah.
show the empathy and the compassion, try to work through the hard times with the individuals that are incarcerated.
And I think part of that needs to come with a transformation of the prison environment, because prison
Mhm.
environments are just so harsh in and of themselves, and what's allowed and what isn't allowed. And one of the things that you spoke to was the expression of emotion. There's only like certain emotions that are acceptable, and they're typically harsh emotions, hard emotions, these soft, fluttery emotions that we all have. Those are frowned upon in prison, those carrying emotions. And so most people, be it the COs or those of us who do time, we come out of there hardened, and not able to really express those joyful emotions.
Absolutely. You're in survival mode at that
Yeah.
point, it's all about surviving.
Hmm.
And it's hard to be vulnerable in that kind of environment,
Yeah. You don't
because
want to be victimized.
not, and we got to face it, like, not everybody on the inside is even ready to change.
That's
You
true.
know what I mean?
That's true.
And even for myself, when I was in there, I wasn't ready to change.
Hmm.
I was, plugging it up in different areas when I was in there. I cannot say prison changed me, but it did not give me the opportunity either. You know what
Hmm.
I mean? So
Hmm.
it was like tit for tat, and that sometimes doesn't sound good
Hmm.
for those of us that want to be heard.
Hmm.
But I hope with us, some of us being able to be honest, that they will hear that part of the message,
Hmm. Hmm.
not that like we're just trying to create all these butterflies and rainbows.
Right.
It's
Because
like if you
life
want
ain't
to
that.
stay real about it, like if there's integrity is what we're after, right?
Right on.
And so that's like what I promote, and it's just part of my truth.
Yeah. What would you suggest for someone to find or to begin pursuing integrity? Like maybe speak to how you got to that point where you began to find strength and clarity, connection, integrity.
Uh, I had to be honest with myself. I had
Mm,
to sit and reflect. I had to stop saying the things I had gone through is what kind of created me. That's where the accountability piece comes from.
mhm, mhm, mhm,
So it's like my integrity I had to own up to I made choices in the decision I made to do the wrong things
mhm.
because I knew better.
Yeah.
I could have reached out for help in a different capacity. I just chose not to. And I
Mhm.
know not everybody's in that situation, right? So
Right.
this is me.
Right. Right. Right.
But the just your word meaning something. You don't get through the lifestyle that I personally lived through being honest,
Mhm.
right? So I think I just the self reflection and realizing all the lives I contributed to destroying, the
Mhm,
forgiveness that I needed from my higher power, so that I
mhm.
could then forgive myself and learn to love myself. I mean, it started within,
Yeah,
you know. To
yeah,
answer your point, like where did it start? Or the
yeah,
integrity started when I needed to clean my slate and I needed to keep it real with myself,
yeah,
so that I could then really figure out what my value is.
yeah. So it was an inside job that took place on the inside.
Later, not
Yeah.
inside during my prison time, inside during more jail time after that.
Okay. Okay,
After
okay.
after things got worse after my
Mhm.
release.
Yeah, but still
And
on the inside. And,
mm,
it it often happens when we are, like, at rock bottom, and we're just, not to sound cliche, but we're sick and tired of being sick and tired. I think that that's when we start reflecting,
oh
you
yeah.
know, and start saying,
Um
"It's gotta be something different."
and getting a break in the chains Bible and getting involved in Celebrate Recovery. Like that's
Mhm,
where I was introduced, was in my jail. One of the jails. So it was um I was ready to let the light in. I
mhm.
was so sick and tired of being in the dark.
Yeah.
Finally had hit my rock bottom.
Mhm,
Because after I got out of prison, I had a child several years later,
mhm,
and then continued to have the excuse of, well, this is how I support him. You know
mhm.
what I mean? This is
Yeah,
my means.
yeah,
Because after the prison sentence and already being a convicted felon and all the things, and then, it's just easier. So, what I thought was easier to continue down a rougher path to support myself. But again, that was confidence.
yeah.
That was not believing in myself or that anybody else should believe in me to give me a chance, which are things I started working on later on.
Mhm, mhm. That's heavy too, man, like, being ready to let the light in, because yeah, we can't force it into
Mm-mm,
anyone. But once it comes in, it illuminates everything, and as you talk about that, it makes me think about my own experience. I got out of prison, like, in '97, and I've been out ever since, but I remember a guy, they called him Stacks, and Stacks told me, "Hey, man, they have some meetings over in this room. You need to come over here and just check it out. You might like it." And I'm like, "Yeah, okay." And went over there, and I think sitting in those meetings changed my life as well, and but I was ready, like you talk about, and like so many other people who find their change, they're ready to change, you know? But what do you think was perhaps the hardest adjustment for yourself to get on this, for lack of a better term, the straight and narrow? And it's never straight and narrow, it's always bumpy.
What was the hardest part?
Yeah.
Oh, tell me again. What was the
So
hardest part?
yeah, well, what was just like the hardest adjustment, I guess,
Forgiving myself.
yeah,
Forgiving myself.
forgiving yourself.
Forgiving
Mhm.
myself. Trusting that I was ready.
Mhm.
Meaning having to trust myself.
Yeah.
Because that fear of rejection
Mhm.
and that acceptance piece, right? Because
Yeah.
you want people to accept you. And then, like, I had sometimes self doubt, like, what if I'm really not done? Like, how do I know I'm done? Um, is that going to seem fun to me again? And then, like, just throughout my journey of like being able to meet with people and hearing other stories is really powerful.
Yeah.
I think some of the best mentors are the ones that have all this time under their belt,
Mhm.
and just seeing that it is possible. I think the new man or newcomer can help as well, but I think once you have role models, if you will,
Yeah.
that can show you, hey, I've done this, you can too.
Right.
And so by sitting in some of those meetings, I would love to just always hear the old timers,
Yeah.
you know, and that they never got too big for their britches, if you'll say, you know what I mean? They just stay
Right.
humble and it doesn't really, it just made it seem possible.
Yeah. Yeah. And, that's why we're collecting your story, because somebody's gonna hear your story and say, "Oh, well, damn, she did it. I can do it."
That
You
blows. It still blows my
Yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Absolutely, me too. I'm sometimes people call me and they're like, "Hey, man, we value what you have to say," and I'm like, "Do you really know who the hell I am? You know what I've been through? But okay." But, you spoke though, about the old timers. You talked about the role models. Who were the people that showed up for you, and what did real support look like for you? Because I know this journey, we don't do it on our own.
Peer supports
Yeah.
and my probation officer. Believe it or
Mm,
not, I had an amazing PO
mm,
out of all of them I ever had, but one in my path that believed in me until I could believe in myself, which blows my mind as well,
yeah.
and meeting my sponsor through kind of a pure living room, if you will, here in
Mm,
my town. Those they became my rocks, my sponsor, who I met through Peer University, and the probation officer. And then my now husband, he and his family became my rock.
no.
They supported me through it with no judgment. Like, got to know what unconditional love like really meant because
Mm,
that's something I always questioned my whole life.
yeah.
Is there love without intention?
Right.
Love without ultimatum, or is there conditions on it? I guess is a better way to say that. And for the first time in my life, I really had a village that was family now.
Mhm.
The law. Maybe here's the word.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And
um,
peer
a far
support is
stretch.
family. Oh, I'm sorry, say that again?
It was a far stretch, like a
Yeah,
broadened, group, if you
yeah,
will.
yeah, yeah.
Mm.
I remember, being in on a conversation, I don't know where I was, but we were talking about developing mentors and peers, and somebody said, "Your mentors, your peers, they they don't all need to look like you or come from your background. You need that variety of mentors and supporters to give you various perspectives on this world and to give you various ideas to help you grow, to broaden even more." So, that's dope. And then I know, and I'm sure and everybody else probably knows that we need each other. Human beings need other human beings to make sense of this world and to make sense of ourselves. And so when we have pro social, healthy people surrounding us, we have no choice but to get better and stay better. And that's what I'm hearing from you. You
Yeah.
have this healthy village.
And a healthy village is where it's at, and then, accessibility to some of those things, you know what I
Mm,
mean? Like,
mm,
I didn't really get involved in, like, therapy, and I didn't really start looking at mental health
mhm.
until probably recently, and
Yeah.
I noticed with what I do
Mhm.
pouring in, and sometimes you find yourself fighting hard for this person because I just needed that one person to fight hard for me. And I started looking like, is this taken from me? So that self-care is really important. And just being able, and I'm grateful because at least the old Monica would have noticed that she needed help.
Yeah.
Would notice that she was burning out. Would have noticed that she couldn't handle this, right? Because
Mhm.
I always have to be strong.
Yeah.
And so, I think accessibility, um, to mental health,
Mhm.
no matter what,
Yeah.
is so important. And I think had I been offered
Mhm.
help
Mhm.
in a different scenario, I might would have come around a lot sooner. I
Yeah.
do feel that. Um, but like you need somebody out there rooting for you.
Mm.
Like somebody's got to speak up and say, "Hey."
Mhm.
And I think that needs to start more. I know that needs to start more on the inside. I don't think.
Yeah, you know it because you lived it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And, speaking of on the inside, and you've said it multiple times already, and you talked about peer support, and I know and understand, as you know and understand, the importance of peer support. Can you talk a little bit about what peer support means to you then and what it means to you today and moving forward?
What it meant to me in the beginning of my journey was there's somebody else. I'm not alone.
Mhm.
right? There is someone out there with similar lived experience that's willing to hear me out,
Yeah.
and walk alongside me
Mhm.
and not try to tell me what to do, but like be a lending ear just to run ideas by one another, you
Yeah.
know? Having someone that can truly meet you where you're at with no
Mhm.
judgment
Yeah.
goes such a long ways that you have no connection to as far as they are not someone you've hurt in your past, right? So you might want that person of support to be a family member, but sometimes we have to remember that they're working through things too, and they can't be that person for you. So being connected with someone with lived experience that will walk alongside you with no judgment,
Mhm.
um, to me, you feel like you have a choice. Like nothing's being forced.
Yeah.
You can either talk to this person
Yeah.
and allow them to help you
Mhm.
or not. And that gives you kind of control back a little bit. Um, I hope that more of us can continue spreading the word and knowing how important it is um, to have an individual or multiple individuals that you can be vulnerable with,
Yeah.
share your wants, desires, and needs,
Mhm.
um, be able to throw out ideas, collaborate,
Mhm.
bounce ideas off of one another, um, and just providing folks a space
Yeah.
to look inside if they want to.
A safe, brave space.
Yes, with no judgment. Sometimes that's all we need.
Yeah. Yeah.
We just need sometimes need to be heard. And that doesn't mean that your support's gonna be your therapist.
Right.
But when you're like, well, why am I gonna do this? Because these people think this about me, and my record's gonna stop me from being able to get a job, and my record is gonna stop BSS from allowing me to have my children. And this, I've still got court. I need a driver's license. How am I gonna do this? How am I gonna do that? Well, when you're able to sit down with somebody that's walked through it and they're like, this is how, they're
Yeah.
like,
Right.
"Oh, you did
Yeah.
that? It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I did that. So
That's
let
right.
me help you do that if
That's
you're
right.
able to do it.
Yeah. And I think that that's even more powerful than, say, the I don't know what you want to call them, the qualified professional, so to speak, who hasn't had that lived experience versus the qualified, what they call a quasi professional or something,
Mhm,
us peer supporters, because I'm a certified peer supporter as well, you know.
mhm.
But when you have those of us with that lived experience, I think it definitely helps. And one of the things you mentioned was, that fear of judgment, and I think that that really holds a lot of us back, especially like you talked earlier about if I would have been offered help sooner. But sometimes I think we know we need help. Like I'm speaking for myself in this regard. I knew I needed help, but I didn't know that maybe I was suffering from some sort of psychosis or mental health disorder. But once I started getting help, it became clear that I'd been traumatized, basically living on survival mode because of the trauma, and that was leading me back to bad decisions. And I think that that's what happens to many of us. But once I start realizing that and started trusting and not being afraid of the judgment or whatever, and just going forward in my own power, that I begin to come into fruition. But like you and like many of us who find success, there were people in my corner as well.
It just takes that one person
Yeah.
that then shows you that there is a softer side to humans
Yeah.
and that you can trust.
Yeah.
When you end up in the game for so long, all you know is the rough crowd. All you know is everybody's gonna lie, steal, cheat, and do whatever they need to do to get by.
Yeah.
And once you're able to be like, oh, there really are good people in the world,
Mhm.
that kind of makes the light bulb go off,
Yeah.
and have faith that there's more than one.
Absolutely. And I think that you mentioned your age, you said I'm 40. I'm 55.
42.
Oh, you're 42. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me give you them
And
years now. Ain't taking that.
yeah, I am. And I'll be 43 this year. Obviously, we're into a new year. And my biggest,
Congratulations.
my biggest regret is not doing this sooner.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
the years I wasted,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's a bummer.
Yeah. But, I think we start to turn towards desistance as we get older. We start to slow down, make smarter decisions as we get older. And crime is really a young person's game, you know, the streets and all that. So once you get about 30, I think you should be turning that corner if you haven't already. Well, you may not be there yet, but you're thinking about it. I need to,
Yeah.
let me
I
ask you this. Well, it sounds like you're about to say something. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to ask you, what would you say maybe to another woman who's currently incarcerated? She feels forgotten or she feels unloved or some of the other things that you shared about where you were in your early days. What would you say to a woman who might be hearing this conversation?
Forgive yourself. Forgive yourself. Believe in yourself. You're worth it.
Yeah.
We're all worth saving,
Yeah.
all worth loving,
Yeah.
all deserve forgiveness. That's going to start with it. And once you start doing that internal work, you'll see things that will start coming to light. And because it's hard for us to receive love and forgiveness if we're not showing it to ourselves.
That's true.
So self esteem to me has always been a really big one. And I think that starts within.
Mhm.
I would suggest no matter how much time you have left on the inside, um, come up with a plan, you know? Don't try not to have it all figured out
Right.
because in the field I work in, I have individuals coming to me every day on my caseload. Like, Miss Monica, when I got out, I was going to do this, and this. And I'm like, yes, that's great. We're going to get there. But
Yeah.
there's a few other steps. You know what I mean? So instead of setting yourself up for any kind of disappointment or putting it on anybody else if they're not working as fastly as you need them to,
Yeah.
think about those sustainable goals
Yeah.
and let one of those main goals be loving and forgiving yourself.
Mhm.
Connect with somebody when you get out. Go to your Justice Resource Center. Connect with a reentry organization. There are people out there that want to help you, but we need you to want to help,
Yeah.
right?
Ain't nobody to help you if you don't want it.
Right? Because we can't fix it. We need you to meet us. My philosophy is when you come to me, I'll drag you that 90% because you can only give me 10. But
Yeah.
our goal is to be 50-50 because I'm no different than you. So there's
Yeah.
no sense in you not being able to be prepared to work hard and grind for what you want,
Yeah.
you know, and then those relationships. But that first important relationship, in my opinion, is the one that you have with yourself.
That is so important. The ancient Egyptians often had a carving over the doors of their mystery temples, and it said, "Man, know thyself." You know, that was the first tenet of all wisdom, all knowledge for the person to know themselves. And so I think you hit the nail on the head with that. We got to know ourselves first. We got to love ourselves first. We got to forgive ourselves first, or we can't extend it anywhere else.
And know that we're worth, cutting off any kind of toxic relationship, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Sometimes we want to hold on to things that are no good for us.
Yeah.
And we've got to acknowledge it. We have to come to a point where we're like, it's just not good for me.
Yeah.
And love somebody from a distance or care about somebody from a distance. But
And that stuff takes work, and as you said, be prepared to work. I
oh
think
yeah,
if we live, a crooked life, that's a hard work, I guess, direction of work to go, but even if we want to change our lives and live a good life, that takes hard work too. So, I think it's about choosing your hard, you know? And I think living this hard life is a lot better than breaking rocks, so to speak.
it really is. I mean, you got to go hard. You got to go strong.
Yeah,
You just got to muster up
yeah. You go
the
hard or go
will to
home.
do so.
Yeah.
Lean on your higher power. Find
Right.
your click. Find that
Right.
support group, whatever it looks like.
Mhm, mhm.
And you don't have to go at it alone.
Dig it. So we're about to wrap this up, Monica. Got about 3 minutes, and there's 2 things I wanna ask you. And one, is there anything you wanted to share that I didn't touch on?
I don't think so. Um, I really appreciate this opportunity. I was shocked
Yeah,
to even be asked to do something like this.
yeah,
Like I'm still kind of pinch myself at in certain situations. Like, what does my voice matter? You know?
yeah.
That's a really good feeling. So I'm honored and I really appreciate you allowing me this opportunity. Um, I think it's amazing what you're doing.
Thank you. Before we run out of time, if somebody wants to reach you, how can they reach you?
Monica W at firstinc.org. MONICAWFIRSTINC.org.
Doing. And Monica, I think we're gonna have to have you come back if you're up for it. Talk more about the work that you do.
I'd love that.
Yeah, because I'd really like to highlight that work. I heard you speaking at the reentry meeting, and I was like, I gotta get her on the show.
Well, I'm getting ready to leave for Raleigh tomorrow. I'll be
Mhm.
attending the JRC. We're presenting for First at Blue Ridge. The governor, the governor's wife, all the people will be there. We're all about reentry 2030. So I've got to prepare and do that and be out of town for a couple of days. But I would love to jump back on here and
Right on.
talk more about what we do in the agency I'm with.
Okay, that's dope. And I'll probably see you at the JRC. So yeah, I'll probably see you then.
All right.
All right. So thanks again, and I wish you a great rest of your day. I'll be in touch.
You too. God bless. Thank you.
Thank you. Blessings.
Bye.
Peace.
Hey y'all, thanks for hanging out with me for another episode of the Prison to Promise podcast. If you or someone you know would like to share their Prison to Promise story on this platform, please hit me up at drcraigwaleed@gmail.com. I'll spell it for you. That's DrCraigWaleed@gmail.com. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Peace.